I didn't know what racism was when I was a child. I only knew how certain rooms felt colder, even in summer. I grew up believing that the world was mostly fair, because the adults around me worked very hard to make it seem that way. They didn't lie to me exactly. They just edited the truth. My mother used to say, "Be polite. Be quiet. Don't give anyone a reason." At the time, I thought that was just good advice. Later, I understood it was survival training. I was 8 years old when I first noticed the difference. Not the word. Not the concept. Just the pattern. At school, when I raised my hand, teachers paused, just long enough for doubt to breathe. When other kids made mistakes, they were learning. When I did, it was behavior. No one explained it. No one needed to. Racism doesn't introduce itself to children. It teaches them quietly. By the time I was 10, I had learned how to shrink myself. I spoke softer. I laughed less. I stayed closer to the rules than anyone else. Because I had learned something very early, mistakes were more expensive for kids who looked like me. By my teenage years, I was very good at being unremarkable. Not invisible, just non-threatening. I learned how to read rooms before entering them. How to measure my tone, my posture, my facial expressions. How to be agreeable without disappearing completely. People praised me for being mature. What they didn't realize was that maturity had been forced on me early. The moment that changed everything happened when I was 16. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No confrontation. It happened in a store. I was there to buy a gift for my mother, a scarf she'd admired in the window for weeks. I picked it up carefully. Checked the price. Put it back exactly where it was. That's when the employee started following me. Not openly. Not aggressively. Just close enough to be felt. Every aisle I turned into, he appeared. Pretending to straighten shelves that were already neat. I wanted to ask him why. But my chest felt tight, because I already knew the answer. When I reached the counter, he finally spoke. "Can I check your bag?" I hadn't even bought anything yet. The woman behind me sighed, not at him, but at me. I remember thinking, if I argue, I'll prove his point. So I opened my bag. He found nothing. There was no apology. Just a nod. Like the suspicion itself had been reasonable. That was the day I learned silence wasn't just polite. It was safer. In my 20s, silence became a habit, and habits shape identity. I did everything I was supposed to do. I worked harder than most people around me. I arrived early, left late, dressed carefully, spoke carefully. I learned how to smile without revealing frustration. How to disagree without sounding aggressive. How to accept being overlooked without appearing bitter. What no one tells you is that this level of self-monitoring is exhausting. You don't just live your life. You perform it. Every conversation feels like a test you didn't ask to take. When promotions passed me by, I didn't accuse the system. I accused myself. Maybe I wasn't confident enough. Maybe I needed one more qualification. Maybe I needed to sound different. Racism rarely says, "You don't belong here." Instead, it asks, "Why aren't you better by now?" And slowly, dangerously, you start believing the question is fair. People imagine racism as something loud. Someone shouting. Someone refusing service. Someone saying the wrong word. But systems don't shout. They delay. They redirect. They forget to call you back. I remember sitting in an office once, across from a man who kept mispronouncing my name. I corrected him gently. Twice. He smiled each time and continued getting it wrong. By the end of the interview, I understood something he never said out loud. I wasn't being evaluated for my skills. I was being evaluated for how comfortable I made him feel. When I didn't get the job, the feedback was polite. You were impressive. We just went with someone who felt like a better fit. Fit. That word followed me everywhere. It never meant talent. It never meant effort. It meant familiarity. And familiarity, I learned, has a look. What hurt most wasn't rejection. It was how normal it all felt. No one was breaking rules. No one was being cruel. The system was functioning exactly as designed. There's a breaking point that doesn't look like breaking. For me, it looked like quiet anger. I stopped correcting people. Stopped explaining myself. Stopped expecting fairness. I assumed the worst before people had the chance to disappoint me. And for a while, that armor felt good. Anger gives you clarity. It simplifies the world. But it also changes you. I noticed myself withdrawing from rooms I used to fight to enter. Judging people before they judged me. I was becoming exactly what the system expected, detached, defensive, hardened. One night, I realized something terrifying. The problem was no longer just what had been done to me. It was what I was allowing it to turn me into. Racism doesn't just try to keep you out. It tries to remake you from the inside. I don't have a dramatic ending for you. No public apology. No perfect justice. No moment where everything suddenly becomes fair. What I have is something quieter, and harder. I chose to stay human. Not polite. Not silent. Human. I started speaking when it mattered. Not to convince everyone, but to stop erasing myself. I learned that dignity isn't about winning every battle. It's about refusing to disappear. If I could go back and teach my younger self one thing, it would be this. Racism survives when it convinces you that you're alone. You're not. Your experience doesn't need permission to be real. Your voice doesn't need to be loud to matter. And the world doesn't change because one person endures quietly. It changes when people decide that silence is no longer the safest option. Not because they want to fight, but because they want to live honestly.